secret museum of the esoteric, the private library of shadows, all taking place in a world forged from mystery and caught between logic and myth. You are entering para-reality.
Hello, and welcome to the mysterious world of para-reality. This is a realm where the blurred lines between what's real and unreal merge together, forming an alternate reality where truth and fiction become indistinguishable. My name's Sandman, and I'm your host. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining me here in the Secret Bunker for another episode of the Para-Reality Podcast. I've got a question for you guys out there. Is it possible to create world peace one person at a time? Well, this week's guest, author and spiritual psychic reader Barbara With, has made that her mission. From her early days of music and automatic writing to her spiritual encounters with famous personalities like Princess Diana and Albert Einstein, Barbara takes us on an exploration of the power of channeling and its potential to bring about personal transformations and global peace through a method called conflict revolution. Barbara With is an international peace activist. She's an award-winning author, publisher, psychic channeler. She's a composer, she's a performer, workshop facilitator, and inspirational speaker. Her resume is as long as my arm. And she's also the co-founder of the aforementioned Conflict Revolution. This is a revolutionary way to resolve conflicts of the psyche based on her work channeling the great Albert Einstein. Now, she's the author of no less than 6 books on metaphysics, including Einstein et al., Manifestation, Conflict Revolution, and the New Operating System. That book is winner of the 2016 Best Book Awards for New Age and finalist in the 2017 Book Excellence Awards for Mind, Body, and Spirit. She's also authored Imagining Einstein, Essays on M-Theory, World Peace, and the Science of Compassion. That book was the winner of the National Best Books 2007 Award for Fiction and Literature. She's also authored Party of 12, The Afterlife Interviews, which was the winner of the 2008 Beach Book Awards for Spirituality. She's also authored Party of 12, Post 9/11, and Diaries of a Psychic Sorority, Talking with the Angels, which was a finalist for the 2019 Book Excellence Awards for Spirituality. As I said, Barbara teaches and trains something called Conflict Revolution. She does this both in person in the classroom and on Zoom, and lectures on her Einstein's unified field theory, maps of human consciousness, and the science of compassion. A spiritual psychic reader since 1987, Barbara With has been conducting and documenting thousands of channeling sessions around the world, speaking with the voices of Albert Einstein and other angelic peacemakers from beyond the grave. People who are no longer on this realm of existence with us. And together with the psychic sorority, Barbara and the party, along with the angels, have created Conflict Revolution, which is a solution for world peace, one person at a time. Each of us starting with ourselves. To learn more about Barbara's offerings, you can find her at www.synergyalliance.llc. Barbara, welcome to Para-Reality. Man, you have got such a fantastically great resume.
Well, thank you for having me, Sandman. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
I am excited too, and I always I got a little tagline, and I say, to learn more, you'll have to tune in, and find out. And I am so glad that I got turned on to you so I could tune in and find out all about you. I've got just a list of questions here, and if you don't mind, I want to get right into it because, man, I got a lot.
Let's go.
Let's do this.
Let's go.
All right, so I try to do as much background checks, not background checks. That was a bad choice of words. I try to do as much to learn as much about my guest as I can. So I first thing you do is you go to the internet, and you start looking at their websites and you start looking at their books and YouTube channels. And Barbara, you've got a lot of channelings on your YouTube channel. And
yes, I do.
There's a lot of good information on your YouTube channel. And to find it, just type in a Google search for Barbara With, and that's WITH, right? That is...
Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes it's a little hard because, you get the results that are like Jack and Barbara with Fred, and, it's like the small W.
Yeah,
but
Barbara with her dog,
Right. My YouTube channel is actually Barb With. BARBWITH.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, you can spend hours and hours going through that YouTube channel. And I saw that you've actually been doing channeling for a long time. It's like 30 plus years of channeling, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this was, before we had the internet, before all the social media, before all the cell phones, before all these modern technology things. And so you've been doing this for a while. And can you tell us a little bit of the story of how you got into channeling?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to preface it by saying that it really came to me via music.
Okay.
Because I started teaching myself how to play piano when I was 5 or 6.
That's great.
And it was last month when I was reflecting back on that time, I realized that there was probably some extraterrestrial or, spiritual influence in those times of being a young person. I started writing music when I was 12. And by the time I got out of high school, I went right on the road in rock and roll. I had 2 sets of original material. And so the channeling started, I think, with that songwriting, because it was going into the nothing. As I described it as a kid, it's like I go into outer space and I would listen for the music and it was already written. So that's a little different kind of songwriting technique than a lot of the songwriters I know who, you're crafting the song and you're shaping it in some ways. But to me, it was already written. So I was just picking that up. And funny you say that this is a long time ago. When I started to get readings, when I was in high school, I think I got my first reading in 1969. There weren't even portable recording devices to bring to the reading. You had to bring a friend to take notes. And that was, the woman who was reading for me was the mother of a friend of mine. And she always said she was just an antenna. So she was picking up information from my higher power and then speaking to my human mind. And I studied with her for a good long 10, 15 years. And then in 1987, I started to spontaneously automatic write. So I knew what it was, but it was still fascinating. And when I asked, because they were telling me things that I was really enlightening me, so it wasn't like coming from my mind consciously. And when I said, "Who are you?" they said, "We're sound." Oh. And I thought about it for a minute, and being that I was older by then, but I had been working with sound my whole life. So I just sort of thought, oh, okay, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And their whole message was really, as I look back on it, it was about how to self-love. It wasn't so much about predictions of the future, although they did talk about the future. It was really about reframing parts of my life that were very, very difficult and shameful. I had a very traumatic childhood, and turning them into a different, more self-loving relationship to myself. So I started to channel for people like my mentor had. And in 1993, I thought, what would these voices say if I channeled in front of a group of people?
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't find anyone in my current clientele who were interested. But then these new women started coming. First came Teresa, and then she referred a bunch of people, and then she sent her best friend, Kimberly. And so they formed a little group and asked me, would I be interested in coming and working with them? And I thought, well, here's my group.
Yeah.
So we did our first group in 1993 in December, and it's from that work that all of my subsequent work has stemmed from.
Okay.
And what we did, we would organize these groups in the living room with our friends and then record them and then transcribe them. And we called ourselves the Psychic Sorority.
Okay.
And the girls, Kim and Teresa, asked in a reading, "Who are you?" And they said, the voices said, "You can call us angels." Okay. And what these angels said they were here for was they had this revolutionary theory about how humans could resolve conflict first within themselves as a pathway to global peace. So they called it world peace, one person at a time, starting with yourself. And they needed human beings who were having conflict to test these theories on.
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
You would think, but it's still pretty fantastical. For us, it was. And so the three of us talked about it and we said, are these really angels? How do we know? But our lives were changing for the better so quickly that we didn't really care if it was, Kim used to say, I don't care if it's the Easter Bunny. It's teaching me how to love myself.
Yeah, it's working.
And so it's working on us. And then we had our first fight. And in the middle of the fight, it was nothing huge, but tensions had been rising and you're doing this and you're doing that. Yeah. And I said, wait a minute, let's get the transcript. So I brought out the transcript and we read, and what it said was, the sentence I read was, if you are involved in a conflict, the root of your part of it is within you. And that was really revolutionary to me because I was very much someone who was victimized. I was always mad at somebody. I was kind of a rageaholic and pointing my fingers at people. And so in that first fight, we actually stopped and had this sort of, we called it a Satori moment where we all were just like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And I came back to the table and said, okay, here's what I can do. And Kim came back and she was like, here's what I can do. And it had such a profound effect, and not just on the three of us and how that conflict resolved, but that night I went to work. I was playing a gig at a hotel in Minneapolis, and there was a waitress there who was totally cold to me. She never had a word to say to me. She was just not a nice person. And I walked in that night, and she could not get enough of me. She's like, do you like Patti Smith? I've got some cassettes. And she put $20 in my tip jar. And that was the first time that I saw the connection between what has later gone on to become conflict revolution and Einstein's information, where he says, when you resolve conflict within you, there's the ability to manifest an outcome outside yourself that you can't get if you go at it in that lens of the physical world. So I could never have gone to that woman and said, hey, how come you don't like me? Or what have I done? Instead, it was just the byproduct of me finding this inner peace. So that was really the start of all this. And we published our first book, like you said, Diary of a Psychic Sorority, in 1997. And that's all our diaries, all the transcripts from all of those initial sessions.
Okay.
And I started training conflict revolution in 1999. And so I've been training it ever since. It's evolved through the years. But that's really how I got started.
That's very interesting. I had this. I don't know if this is correct or not, but it kind of reminds me of what you were saying of the inner peace that you bring to yourself emanates out, right? So is that kind of, to me, it sounds like you are, I don't know how better to describe it, kind of like changing your aura, you're changing your vibe, and what I like to tell people, if I've got a coworker that's going through a bad time, the first thing that everyone does is like, oh, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to do this. I don't like to do that. I always say, I'm going to send out positive vibes to you, and it's kind of like, that's kind of what it reminds me, is that, you are, you've got this internal vibe going, this aura, and you are just projecting that out in front of you, and I that may be a bad analogy or an oversimplification of what's going on, but that's very much about what it reminds me of when I tell people I'm giving you my positive vibes, So maybe I'm onto something and I just didn't know it. I don't know.
Absolutely. And I think as we get in more to the story, we get into how Einstein delivered to me from Afterlife a unified field theory with maps of human consciousness and the science of compassion, and a diagram. It's that we actually have a map of the unified field theory. Oh. And going back to what you're saying is that aside from that lofty information, it's really not brain surgery to think, if I walk in a room and I'm angry or I'm hurt or I'm projecting, I have a huge influence on what happens in that room. Right. And if I walk in that room with a shining light projecting out, people are affected by that. Now, you don't have control over them, but it's exactly that.
They pick up on what you're emanating from you, and especially if they get within your personal space, which is what I causes you, as I stretch out my arms here on the podcast that no one can see, but you stretch out your arms, and that's your personal space. If people, the closer they get to your personal space, whatever attitude you've got internally, they start picking up on that,
Absolutely.
And if you're, so the closer they get to you, the stronger it is. And, if you're not in a good mood, they're definitely going to be feeling that. So Barbara, tell me again now, when did you first realize that you were psychic? When did that realization hit you?
I think for a lot of my life growing up, I felt like I had some kind of foreknowledge, or especially with the music, because the songs that I was writing at the age that I was writing them were so deep and profound that they even surprised me. I was like, wow, where is this coming from? And so I've always had that. I call it intuitive arts more than psychicness. But when I started that automatic writing and realized that I could channel like that, I think that was really where it became clear to me that I had this enormous gift. Now, I had no idea that it was going to take me to where it went, but.
Right. But you didn't have anybody that you didn't run into anyone, like you didn't go to a psychic or anybody like that, and they were like, "There's something, you've got this gift." You just kind of did it all on your own, just by yourself.
Well, kind of. And when I was studying with Eunice, who was the woman she was just the mother of a friend of mine. I didn't seek out a psychic. My friend Mike said, "Hey, come and see what my mom does." Yeah. And I was like, "What does your mom do?" And so, but she was really much more focused, I think, on my music and my musical career and where I wanted. Because the only thing I ever wanted to be since I was 5 years old was a rock star. And that was my whole focus. And when I went out of high school, I went right on the road in music for 20 years. And so she didn't actually say, "You would be doing this, you are psychic." But when it spontaneously started happening, it just made a lot of sense to me.
My wife would relate to you a lot because she is a musician. And several years ago, she got involved with a band who wanted to do original music. And she had never been that type of musician. She just always was cover, And she got into writing songs and actually got, of course, my opinion is probably biased because she's my wife, but I think she actually got pretty decent at it. And she described a couple of times to me, like when she was writing of she didn't use the word channeling per se, but that's kind of what it sounded like was happening, was that she was picking up on something from somewhere. And a couple of songs that she wrote, you can really tell that there is something going on from somewhere, that she did not just sit down and go, okay, let me write a song about, this red shirt. She had something somewhere spoke to her and was like, you need to write this down. And those couple of songs are just very, very ethereal and hauntingly beautiful, so I think she can relate to you a lot on a musical background.
Yeah.
So do you do readings for private individuals, or do you just?
Yes.
Okay. So can you tell me about the type of reading that you do, and who would you communicate with if somebody booked a reading? Like say if I wanted to book a reading with you, can you tell me about how that would go and who you would communicate with?
Yeah, I call them the party, and that comes from the Party of 12, which was my second book that we can get into how that happened. But when I do a reading, I don't actually go into a trance. I go into what I say is a concentration. Mm-hmm. And I'm there conscious of what's being said. But what happens for me is there's this shift. And the way I describe it is that I did this for years, that I would shrink down my ego voice. Because, there's always this voice in our intellect in our heads going, well, you can't say that to people. You don't even know this person. Mm. And so I would shrink that down. And then it created this space where I could listen like I used to when I'd write music. And then in come the words, in come the voice. And while I say that it's Einstein and the party, it's really a collective consciousness of this voice of we. And it isn't definitively, this is Albert Einstein, although I'm sure his voice is in there. Okay. But you will also bring your spirit guides or your angels, and they'll have a voice in it. And a lot of it is, when we start out with a reading, we talk about what you brought with you into this life to accomplish what your purpose is, influences of culture that got you where you are today, what the condition of your energy. And Einstein always likes to use the readings as a way to teach this revolutionary worldview and give you really concrete step-by-step instructions on how to use it with what you're dealing with in life. And then we turn in the future, and there are some predictive stuff, but most of it is about inspiring and showing people this revolutionary way to build your own life, to create your own life in new, empowering ways.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So it's more like a typical psychic. I guess if I book a reading, they're sitting down and they're channeling someone specific. It's like, it's like, oh, I want to talk to my grandmother. Can you talk to my grandmother? And they do this whole thing where they try to get in touch with the grandmother, and sometimes they'll have somebody else will come in from somewhere. So, is that kind of like you? It sounds like you don't do that type of channeling. But do you have occasions where there's some entity or some person who's passed on who wants to be channeled through you, and it's just kind of spontaneous? Like as we're sitting here talking, we're just having a casual conversation, and you're like, oh, in the middle of this, your dad is coming through, and he wants me to tell you, to look behind the couch for the green sock that you've been missing. I mean,
yes.
Do you have stuff like that happens to you like it's not like a planned session with someone else, but maybe someone has a message that wants to come through?
It has happened on occasion, and it's something that when people say, "Can we talk to my dead father?" and I say, this isn't generally what I do, but I'm certainly willing to sit down and have that conversation, which is, I named my third book Imagining Einstein,
Mm-hmm.
because it really felt like I was just imagining it. And so I've had situations. I had a woman come to me about this. She had lost like 5 of her 8 siblings to some heart disease. And I said, well, let's just sit down and start to talk. So it wasn't like a reading where I closed my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would just say what I imagined, here's Joe and here's what he says. And then she would say, oh my God, that's what he always used to say to me.
Yeah.
But it's not my ballywick. I always say that, it's like asking Einstein, where's my watch?
Yeah.
where he is here for a much, much different purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes in readings, very oftentimes in readings, if somebody says, is my grandma there? Then we can get in touch with her because she's probably in the party. I don't know who isn't in the party.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got a group of people that you channel, that you talk to, and sometimes they speak through you.
Yes.
Which is, to me, that is something that is, I don't know of a lot of, I've interviewed a lot of psychics over the course of me doing this podcast, and I've never talked to one such as yourself who has the group of people that they channel. Everybody else is we're talking and I'm getting someone coming through, and, they're wearing there's the white T-shirt. Does that mean anything to you? Do white T-shirts mean anything to you? And it's that type of psychic that and I think probably the majority of people who are used to dealing with. So what you are doing, the way that you do it, as far as I'm concerned, is very unique. And I've never run across anyone who has that type of ability before. So I don't know how you managed to do it, but I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's like I said, I think it's rare. I think it's unique. So I'm glad that I was able to that we were able to find each other, so I could talk to you to find out about this, because it's very, very fascinating. It's not your typical, I'm a psychic story, and it's not mediumship. You are not a psychic medium,
Right.
Which is something that I want to stress to everybody out there, is that you are not the psychic medium. And like you said, it's not in your bag of tricks, so to speak, that you're not going to, sit down and channel my grandmother, specifically. You can try, but you're here for something completely different, and the way that you channel and who you channel is something completely different. So you have to know, that you have to realize that before you go in to book a reading with you. And that's
yes.
it's all fascinating. It's very, very fascinating. What I'm really interested to know is this conflict revolution. I'm really interested to know more about this, because I think that it could be, or maybe it already is, something that is very powerful especially in these times that we live in, these divisive times. It seems like everybody's turned against everybody else, and it's very, there's so much disconnect. I don't think not in my lifetime have I ever seen so much disconnect between basically just everybody. It seems like here in the States, everything is turned to a color. You're red or you're blue, and no one's willing to talk to the other. And it really seems like we are more divided now like I said, than what we've ever been in my lifetime. I know there's been worse than this, but in my lifetime, we've never been this divided. And I think it's very important for us to, start mending this and start bridging this gap of me against you and being separate. So can you give us an overview of the system of the conflict revolution? And it's not resolution, it's revolution with a V. So can you give us an overview of conflict revolution?
Absolutely. And just to preface it, when we started doing this work in the 90s, the world was pretty good. It was, the United States was pretty abundant, and there wasn't a huge World War III looming, et cetera. There wasn't this big divide. So as we worked it through these 30 years, in 2023, when I left home to go on this world peace tour to take this information forward, I have found more and more and more people energized and excited by this conversation because we are where we are in the world. So real basically, conflict revolution, we work with what we call the 3 human dimensions. And you think of them like sort of like spiritual organs. You have your heart, you have your liver, you have your kidney. They all have their certain things to do. And when your heart is broken, you treat it in a different way than when your kidney is broken. So these 3 human dimensions are emotion, intuition, and intellect. And on these maps of the unified field, just to see how we create physical reality one step at a time, just very briefly, Einstein says that the source of everything is in the center of the planet. And it operates like a black hole. And compassion, the 5th fundamental force of the universe, he calls it, it's the intelligence that uses the 4 fundamental forces to impel the creation of the physical world one step at a time. So from the center of the earth, compassion impels energy to step out of the nothing and create what he calls a compilation of consciousness. So like a compass that draws circles, compassion impels energy to create this circular membrane domain that surrounds all the math of who you are. Mine surrounds the math of who I am. And then it aligns our compilations like a compass to true north. So we're all on the same map.
Okay.
And then it imbues us with this intrinsic knowledge that we all come from the same source, that we all are one. So that's kind of the classical definition of compassion.
Okay.
And from this compilation, there's a gravitational wave that leaves the center of the earth and it makes its way to the surface of the planet where our physical bodies are created. And we have what we call the lens. So we see the physical world. You're separate from me now here. And on that gravitational wave are these 3 human dimensions of emotion, intuition, and then intellect. And it's an evolutionary process to get to where it's going to create physical form that's separated. So this is really a projection from this compilation of consciousness into the physical reality. And what Einstein says is, whatever the condition of this gravitational wave, it perfectly projects into the lens to create physical reality. So all that math, right, of the chair and the computer and everything perfectly manifests. But also, the relationship of these 3 human dimensions will also affect what you manifest in that lens as well. And that's going back to what we were talking about. If your emotions are so overwhelmed and your thoughts are so conflicted, you're going to project that into the lens and it'll have an effect on your relationships and what you draw to you, etc.
For sure.
So that's why the system can be perfect and still manifest conflict. So what we teach people is how to, what he says, align to compassion. And this is the way the new operating system is supposed to work. It's changing from a fear-based to a compassion-based. And what that is this wave is flowing, and the first area is emotion with a capital E. And this is kind of the primordial soup. So it's all the fractals of me and the chair and you, everything's all mixed together. But we're starting to pull together. So you're starting to pull together you, I'm starting to pull together me. Then it evolves the next step, which is intuition. And intuition it's the impelling for the next most advantageous step for the good of the whole of what's being created. So it's not about knowing what's going to happen next week. It's a function of how we operate that will tell us. And it's basically the voice of compassion, the voice of God in our hearts, impelling us. And the third dimension is intellect. And this is where all the definitions are created. So it's in the intellect that is saying that is a chair, that is a table, and a subatomic part of it. Mm-hmm. And this is also where free will is exercised.
Okay.
So if you're going to turn left, the energy that sends the message to your hand to pull the wheel comes from the intellect. We don't make decisions with our intuition. Intuition will tell us what to do, but intellect has the ability to override intuition. And we've all experienced this, we have this impelling to rest, right? And then our minds say, oh, I can't rest. I've got 100 things to do, and off we go. Mm-hmm. And what Einstein says is all of the conflicts in the world that manifest in the lens, the root is between the intuition and the intellect. And if we align our three human dimensions to compassion, where intuition is now telling us this next step, and intellect, instead of trying to figure out what to happen tomorrow or what happened last week or I can't do this or analyzes it, intellect is there. We're in present moment. We're having our experience in the world and we're listening for intuition. And then when intuition impels, intellect makes that decision as per that. And that is what aligns us to that magical, mysterious power of compassion that's able to then manifest in the lens what it is that is what's best for us. And oftentimes we don't know what's best for us.
Yeah.
Very
true.
At this age, now I just turned 69 and I still have a beautiful relationship to my music, but thank God I didn't become a rock star. I would never have had this incredible life of delivering this profound information. As you see, this is not the average psychic.
Yeah.
I never would have had that. And now that what I know of the music industry, I'm sure I never would have made it through. Mm-hmm. So we teach people how to do that in a very kind of everyday, practical way. Oh, sorry, cats. And it really is revolutionary, and how the outcomes miraculously happen. Mm-hmm. Just briefly, I had a conflict, one of my famous ones that I use in all of my teaching about, I had this bad shoulder and this bad back, and I was working in property management, and my boss didn't have proper cleaning help, and I can't clean, but every time he didn't have help, I'd have to clean the 3-bedroom house. Mm-hmm. And when I finally got it, when I had my revolution where I realized, oh, they're not the ones, he's not the one that doesn't have any respect for my physical body. I am. Because every time nobody shows up, even though I say I don't clean, off I go to clean.
Off you go, yeah.
And intuition in that moment, when I had that aha moment, I said, what am I supposed to do? And it said, make yourself heard. So I went back to the office and I took my boss outside and I am not going to clean. Do you understand? Okay. All right. Yes. I was lying the whole time, but I'm not anymore. And in the door walked Ileana, who said, hey, I heard you guys need a cleaner. And it was never a problem again. So there are ways, I don't know how it works, but that is the miraculous revolutionary process of conflict resolution.
Wow, that's That's pretty cool. It worked out like that. That's amazing.
Oh, I got so many stories of unbelievable outcomes that you can't go into the lens. And Einstein said that, you cannot deal with conflict at the same level that it's being created.
Well, so what kind of impact are you thinking that conflict resolution can have on the world? Like by teaching me, what kind of impact are we looking at here for this? Because I know you say one person at a time. So what is it that you're trying to do? What's your end goal?
My end goal is to spend the rest of my natural life bringing this information in as many people in as many ways as I can. I've been doing it for over 30 years now, but it was last year when I took a look at the world and what was going on. And I thought, you know what? Yes, if I lived to be as long as my mother and father, my mom was 96 and my dad was 97. But
good genes.
I want to dedicate the rest of my life in whatever way that I am guided by my intuition to bring this information to the world, because I think one person at a time is it's a start. I often think that if there was a pop culture opportunity for me to get this into a huge arena, like you said, being on a Joe Rogan or a Russell Brand would certainly bring it to more than one person at a time. But it starts with me, and I know what it did for my life, and I know that it's not the kind of piecework that is traditional where you go into the conflicted arena, that it's all of us being able to do this and change our lives. And early on, the angels told us, it's not just you. You have circles of people that you influence, whether it's the people in the bus or the gas station or the grocery store or your family. There's all sorts of circles that you can touch to create this peace. And what I'm finding with all the podcasts that I've been doing in this past 9 months since I've been on the road and my peace tour is that people are ready, willing, able, and hungry to have a new way, because like you said, we're so conflicted. And if everybody, part of conflict revolution is, it's kind of shadow work, I would call it. So that if you're triggered by someone, like I was triggered by my boss, and I had this sound bite that said, he doesn't care about my physical body. Okay, let's revolve that. Where do you not care about your physical body? And in that moment, my ego was like, what do you mean? I've been getting massages. I've been going to the chiropractor. But that didn't preclude the idea that when no cleaner showed up and I just went out to work, that I was sitting there going like this with my bad arm. So we revolve that back to ourselves to see because you can get triggered by something and your wife, she won't be triggered. That's your energy field. That's your work. That's your clue as to how you can resolve that. And honestly, I have this vision that I intend to manifest. I want Einstein to win the Nobel Peace Prize posthumously for this work. It's just a silly dream that I have, but that really kind of drives me, because I think if there's anything, now you've heard of this term, the matrix, right? People are talking about a simulation. Well, our unified field theory gives you a map of the matrix, and conflict revolution is what frees us from it. Okay. So I'm excited that one person at a time can add up pretty quickly, but I also fully intend that we're going to get this information up and out, because it is such a fantastical story, and it's true. So,
well, we've talked a little bit about the psychic sorority and how you guys came together and all of that. But when did you come to learn that you were channeling Albert Einstein? When did this pop up? Because I mean,
Well,
that is a very unusual, thing.
And like I said, I didn't ever start out to do any of this. I wanted to be a rock star.
Right.
But what happened was when my first book came out, I had a literary agent in New York, and she was shopping it to a publisher because we self-published. Mm-hmm. And she got a call from a tabloid, a paranormal tabloid in London in 1998, looking for an interview with Princess Diana on the 1-year anniversary from Beyond the Grave. Mm. And so she came to me, and I was like, wait a minute. I don't know. This seems rather cheesy and, a tabloid. But I thought, well, let's just see if I can even do it. I don't know. It's not like Princess Diana came to me, which was how I was experiencing the dead were coming to me and saying, can you get a message to my son? Yeah. So I imagined that she was there, and I channeled the questions and the answers I was typing. And then I printed it off and I went to read it, and it was just blew my mind. The level of detail about her relationship with Dodie and what was going on with her kids and what happened that night. And at the end, she said, our work is about peace. And if everybody who put flowers at the palace after I died would do this work, this inner work, we could have world peace. And I was sitting there reading it, and I was crying. I said, Diana, this is brilliant. I mean, if we can get this in a tabloid where 40 million people can see it and you can inspire people. And she said, yes, but we are not in charge. It's like, oh, okay. So there's a bigger. So after that, my agent and I sat down and made this long list of other famous dead people we thought we'd try to see if they wanted to talk. And, Elvis was getting in too much trouble, and Mother Teresa was tired. They all had a reason. And next up was Nicole Brown Simpson. Oh. And that was really interesting as well. A very interesting talk about race relations and what happened to OJ when he was growing up, and how he took stuff out on her that he couldn't on the white people who were making his career, etc. So then we got to John Kennedy, and he said, you don't have to think up people anymore. We will tell you, because we're a party of 12 and we want you to write our book, to publish this in a book. And it was there that he brought up Albert Einstein. And when Albert Einstein, he wasn't even on our list, but when Albert Einstein showed up, and I channeled him vocally, this was the voice of my channeling. This was the voice. This was the energy of sound. We're sound. And this was an energy, it was like a father energy almost that had been in my music. And, Einstein was a musician as well.
So you just knew, like you just had that aha moment, this is it.
Yeah. This was, especially because when I started channeling, I had this very heavy accent that the girls would kid me about because I could never reproduce it when I wasn't channeling. It sounded like, and then one day I heard on TV somebody talking in that accent. I was like, that's that accent. And it was Yiddish. And that was many years before actually Einstein showed up. So that when I was channeling him, and it's like, oh my God, this is the voice of all the readings I've been doing. And so I decided in 2005 to do a tribute just to him, because that was the 100-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. And it was in that work, I channeled about 6 or 7 sessions, and I took all those transcripts and I started to edit. And it was in that work that he delivered this unified field theory with these maps of human consciousness and the scientific definition of compassion. And because I'm not a scientist or scientifically oriented, when he said the source of everything is in the center of the earth and it operates like a black hole, I said, really? I have to go out into the world. Is this even possible? well, if you go to YouTube and you Google Brian Greene, he has a whole video about how black holes aren't just these big, planet-eating things way out in space, that they can be small, and also that he has a theory that our very existence is rooted in a black hole. So it's been that way through the years that I've gotten this validation scientifically as we've gone on. But that's how I got to Einstein. And then in 2016, I thought, I want to do art. I want to have depictions of these maps. I couldn't find anybody to do it, so I just hunkered down one winter and designed them myself.
Well, that was going to be something. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That was going to be something that I was going to ask you was, are these depicted in your books? So you have illustrations in your books. Now in
Einstein et al.
Okay. The unified field theory, is that something that you were able to put down, like kind of map out, draw out? Was that something that you're able to?
Yes.
How did that go?
It's a map.
How did?
Well, it's, first of all, he said, I am not doing this mathematically, because that is not why I'm here. I'm not here to provide the mathematics of the unified field theory. I want the scientists to be inspired on their own. But he was here to show us this unified field theory for really more personalized and kind of so average everyday people could understand it, rather than to be a very mathematical thing. Yeah,
because it would have to be, I'm your average ordinary person, and I, there's no way that I would understand it through math. As math is, like many Americans, math is not my strong suit. So, so can you go into just a little bit of detail about the unified field theory?
Well, and I think that's what I've been speaking of when I'm talking about compassion impels energy to step out of the nothing and creates this. And what it is, it's, there's this thing called string theory.
Yes.
Right? String theory in science says that at the root of everything were these strings. So this gravitational wave, they then creates the lens. And by the way, source, observer, a part of us that is out in the heavens, and the lens of the physical world. These are actual terms of black holes. Yeah, he said, Google black holes, take those three terms, put them in this map. It's like, okay, I'm doing this.
I'm doing it. Yeah.
But that string then continues on to the Earth's electromagnetic field, gets swept back up to the North Pole, back into the center, and then it spins. And it's spinning at the speed of light squared, but where the lens comes in and our physical bodies slows all of that down and separates it out so that we have this physical experience. But that spinning string then, when our bodies die, that string continues to spin with all that. And that's why Einstein, he says he uses my gravitational wave. He travels up mine and he comes through my body and he's able to see and perceive and use my voice and such.
Does the party and Einstein, and I guess he's part of the party, but do they have any like specific message that they want to drive home to all of us? Like, what is their number one message that they want us to understand? What would that be?
World peace, one person at a time, and it has to start with each individual. We cannot expect the next leader or the next party or the political party or even NGOs. Peace will be created in the world when each of us take that responsibility on ourselves, for ourselves, and become that change. I think that's their biggest message.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. I like that. And, there's, you're right, or they're right. You can't rely on, others to do it for you. And what's the famous quote? Was it Gandhi that said, "Be the change that you want to see in the world"?
Mm-hmm.
And that's right along the lines with what Gandhi said. If we want it to happen, we have to rely on ourselves to do it, because we can't rely on others to do it for us.
All the members of the original party of 12, Princess Diana, and then there was Freud and Anwar Sadat. He was a big piece, the big piece, but with Menachem Begin.
Oh, they're two
and
names
Jimmy
I haven't
Carter.
heard in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And I channeled Jesus and Norma Jean Baker, Marilyn Monroe, Jackie O. And these in real life, I learned later because I knew so little about them, any of them. In real life, all of them were peace activists. Marilyn Monroe is a peace activist. And Freud and Einstein actually had a series of, and you can find this online, a series of letters they wrote back and forth in the 30s that was initiated by the League of Nations as a way to sort of bring the world back together after World War I. And Einstein's big question to Freud was, how do we stop war? And his last manifesto, which was read on July 9th, 1955, several months after he died, was the Russell Einstein Manifesto, imploring governments to resolve conflicts peacefully, because we won't survive World War III.
That's very
That
true.
was 1955.
Yeah. Wow.
And here we are.
Yeah.
So it's timely.
Yes, it is. Well, speaking of timely, we're running out here. So I do have just a few more questions that I want to ask, and I've got to get these in. So do you have, and I'm sure you have, but aren't there just like a subset of people who just look at you and go, "Lady, you're crazy. You can't, there's no way that you're channeling angels and Einstein and JFK and others. This is bunk. There's got to be something wrong with you mentally." How do you, when people say stuff like that to you, how do you handle that? And what's your response to them? Because the reason I ask that is because I'm looking at you on the video, and the whole entire time, for those of you who are just listening to this on the podcast and are not watching the video, the whole entire time, even from before we started recording, you have this smile on your face, and you're just beaming, and I'm looking at you, and I'm thinking, there is not an unhappy or malicious bone in this woman's body whatsoever. So I know, I've been doing this a long time. I know that there are people out there who just their minds aren't open. They're like, there's no way this happens. And they got no problems with telling you, "Lady, you are a nut job." So how do you handle that? As coming from someone who radiates this, we were talking about auras, who just radiates this aura of just peace and happiness. How do you handle people like that?
Well, first of all, it is the byproduct of my diligent work of conflict resolution, because I've come through major healing and transformation using it. But really, in answer, it's what I say to people. It's like, okay, let's just say I'm a nut job. I'm okay with that, because I have had mental health issues in my life, and I'm not ashamed of it. But look at this information, and you tell me what it is. Now that you know my history, you know that I'm not some scientific, geek or a mathematician, that all I ever wanted to be was a rock star, that I've struggled with mental health issues in my past. What is this? What is this brilliant thing that has come out of me? And I had this, just quickly, I had this event when I first published Imagining Einstein. My agent booked me into this metaphysical meetup. You know, meetup, you meet online, but you actually meet in person in Philadelphia. So I walked into the room and I thought it was going to be woo-woo, you know. I thought it was going to be paranormal. No, it was amateur physicists, amateur chemists. And they were all talking about like the newest stuff in chemistry and physics. And I was sitting there like, oh, dear.
What in the heck is this? Yeah.
Oh, what am I going to do here? So finally somebody in the back like, let her speak, she says. And I get up and I said, okay, I talked to dead people. I think I talked to Einstein. And I'm not here to convince you, but will you please tell me what you think of this unified field I'm going to tell you? Okay? And they're like, okay. And when I was through, the amateur physicist was, wait a minute, you've taken the 0-point gravity field and you've married it to the da-da-da-da-da, and you put this here, right? I was like, I guess.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah.
I want to be a rock star.
That's
man.
exactly
and
what I did.
Yeah, he's like, the chemist was like, oh, the old model has the 6 things that pour down, and now you've got the 9 things. And so I think what conflict revolution teaches us is, and this is invaluable to everyone, is that what people think doesn't matter unless it triggers a reflection of that doubt in your own head. So if everyone was going around going, you're crazy, Barb, and I was like, oh my God, I'm crazy. What am I doing? I'm crazy. That's my work. I think I'm crazy. But I know what I've been through, and I know how brilliant this work is. And so I am okay. And I'm not even at all averse to saying, okay, I'm a nut job. But what's this then?
Yeah.
What are these 6 books?
Yeah.
And we knew early on that they gave us the psychic sorority, that we came together as 3 for that reason, to support each other and to bear witness that I wasn't just making this whole thing up.
Is the sorority still together?
Oh, yes, we're very close.
Great. Well, I, for one, don't think you're crazy. I don't think you're a nut job. I have learned some stuff just from our brief time together here today. And I'm definitely going to be looking up some of these books. And that's another thing that I wanted to ask you is that where can people find your books? Are they on Amazon? Everything's on Amazon, so I'm assuming so. But where can people find your books?
They're on Amazon. They're sometimes hard to find because of that last name. But you can go to synergyalliance.llc and go down to the book window, and you can pick them up there. And also barbarawith.com it's a little more about me personally rather than the psychic sorority and all of our work. And plus I'm an investigative journalist. So there's a whole series I'm doing right now about propaganda and how to disengage ourselves from propaganda on that. So yeah.
Are your books, are they available electronically, or are they physical? Because some people, don't want physical books.
I have ebooks. I can't remember. We just recently moved all of our work to one company. I had mine and Kim had hers, but I don't remember. But I'm happy to accommodate if somebody wants to. And 2, if any of your listeners are interested in a reading, if you go to barbarawith.com and go to the contact and just say, hey, I heard you on Sandman's Parareality, and then I'll shoot out a 20% discount for a reading.
Oh, great. Well, that was actually going to be the very last question that I had for you.
I must be psychic.
You must be. How about that? Amazing. How can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you more questions or schedule a reading or whatever? So tell them once again how they can do it.
barbarawith.com. And that's BARBARAWITH.com, or synergyalliance.llc. Just go to the contact page, or you can, at barbarawith.com, you can actually order a reading and we can schedule it and go from there.
And I will have those links in my show notes on my website, and also in the show notes for the description of this podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast 6 months in the future, you can always look. There will be links there that you can click on to get in touch with Barbara, and it is Barbara with somebody.
The preposition.
Yes, the preposition. Thank you.
Who is Barbara with?
Yeah. So, thank you very much for being on my little podcast here. I've had a great time talking to you, and I've learned some stuff, and I always try to keep an open mind about everything. And I have really, this is fascinating. I would love, there's so many other questions that I would like to ask you as you were explaining things. I was thinking in my head, okay, I want to ask her this, and this, but I just don't have the time. So I really want to get you back on one day, and so I can pick your brain a little bit more, and you can continue to tell us more about this conflict revolution that you've got in this unified field theory. I mean, this is all fascinating stuff, and I am so glad that you agreed to be on the podcast. Thank you so much, Barbara, for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, and have me back. I'm going to appear at the Science of Consciousness Conference at the University of Tucson in April, and this will be a 5-day conference with all the scientists.
Wow.
So this will be my real test.
So are there any other public appearances that you're going to be doing?
You know, if you go to Synergy Alliance and look under events,
okay.
There'll be, I'm working on an online course for conflict resolution, and I do regular channeling on Zoom that it's free and people are invited to come.
Okay.
So. Okay.
All right. Have you hit a lot of like the convention circuits and stuff? Have you been invited?
You know, I used to. This time when I left home on October 15th, and I've been on the road ever since.
Wow.
I'm kind of being guided to things manifest along the way. So it's really good to sign up at the website and see where the travels are taking me.
All right. Well, everybody, barbarawith.com or synergyalliance.llc. That's how you can find out more information about her books, her readings, sign up to get a reading, find out where she's going to be. It's all on the website, all online. Barbara, once again, thank you so much for agreeing to appear here on Parareality, and I'm definitely going to get you back on here in the future. Maybe after you get finished doing all your traveling, get a little settled down, get a break and catch your breath. We'll have you back on.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hang on just a minute, and I'll talk to you offline, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, one more time. That was Barbara With, W-I-T-H. Very interesting person. Wonderful interview. Thank you again, Barbara, for appearing on Parareality. Definitely going to have to get you back on the podcast again sometime in the near future. And for those of you who may be interested, I do have a companion video of this interview that will be going up on my YouTube channel. I just have to finish editing the whole thing, and I will get that up on my YouTube channel just as soon as I possibly can. And I'll also have it posted on the video section of parareality.com. So keep checking back. I'll make an announcement. I'll send you guys an email or make a video post or a social media post or something like that just as soon as I get it up and running, and you guys can check out that video. But before I leave, I want to remind you guys that the Parareality podcast is going to be one of the official podcasts at the 4th annual Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival in Townsend, Tennessee, next month on May the 4th. That's the first Saturday. It's also Star Wars Day, but we're going to be there, Townsend, Tennessee, Saturday, May 4th at the 4th annual Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival. Now, this festival is an outdoor, family-friendly and pet-friendly event it's got kid zones, it's got live music, Slash Squatch, is going to be there playing his guitar. So there's, like I said, kid zone, live music, several guest speakers, vendors, Bigfoot wood carvers, Bigfoot calling competition. There's even going to be wrestling there. There's a 5K fun run, and there's going to be tons of food trucks on the site. Guest speakers include people like Ron Moorhead, who's the producer of the Sierra Sounds. Russell Accord and Ronnie LeBlanc from Expedition Bigfoot's going to be there. Turtle Man from Animal Planet's going to be there. And, of course, the big one would be the guys from Mountain Monsters from the Travel Channel. They are going to be at the event as well. I don't think Jeffro is scheduled to make it, but everyone else is going to be there. I went to this event last year. They were there. Wonderful group of guys. If you've never met them or had the chance to talk to them or even just see them speak, this is your chance. This is a really wonderful opportunity for you to not only get to go to the Smoky Mountains, but to see all these famous people, including the guys from Mountain Monsters. Like I said, I've been to this event before, and it's one of the best of its kind. There's plenty of things to do and see, and the vendors who are there are top-rate vendors, and the tickets are very affordable. They're less than $14. However, parking at the event is an extra fee, but the event itself is very, very affordable. It's a family-friendly thing. You can easily afford tickets for the whole entire family. There's even an event called a VIB event, Very Important Believer event. That's going to be on Friday, May the 3rd. That's a separate ticket purchase, but ticket holders to this event get to have dinner and a Q&A and just hang out with some of the speakers at the festival. Now, tickets for this are a little pricey. They're $200, but your VIB ticket gets you entry into the Tennessee Smokies baseball game. It gets you an exclusive VIB shirt, access to the special guest, food, beverages at the event, and it's a great event and a wonderful location, and I'm proud to be part of the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival. Of course, I'm going to be doing some sort of live podcast from the festival and hopefully interviewing some people who've had some sort of Bigfoot encounter. So if you've never been to the Smoky Mountains, this is your perfect chance to go. The Smoky Mountains are not only America's most visited national park, but it's most beautiful as well. So bring your friends, bring your family, bring everybody, bring your cryptid group, and make a long weekend out of this. Have some fun at the festival, eat some good food while you're there, and visit the Great Smoky Mountains. Oh, and since you're going to be coming, make sure you come by the Parareality tent and say, hey, I don't know where exactly I'm going to be at the festival. I haven't gotten the map yet, but I'm going to be there. It's outdoors, so I'll be there under a tent somewhere. So make sure if you're listening to this podcast and you are going to the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival, make sure that you come by the Parareality tent, and when you're there, say this secret phrase to get some free show swag. All you have to do is say, Dr. Jeff Meldrum sent me. So once again, if you listen to this podcast and you want to come check out the tent, the booth, the merch, everything that I've got while I'm going to be there, and you want some free swag, just say, Dr. Jeff Meldrum sent me. Now, don't tell anybody that. That's between me and you, okay? It's the secret phrase. I can't be giving out free swag to everybody. But just let me know that Dr. Jeff Meldrum sent me, and I'll give you some free swag. I'll give you some free show swag. So I hope to see some of you guys there. Very excited to be a part of this. And God, the Smoky Mountains are so beautiful. I love going there. If you've never been, perfect excuse. This is a great festival, great place to have it. I hope I get to see some of you guys there. If you'd like to leave a comment about tonight's episode of Parareality, have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, or a story you'd like to tell, send me an email, sandman@parareality.com, or call the Secret Bunker at 615-692-1170 and leave me a message. Don't forget that by leaving me your message, you're giving me permission to play your comment back on the podcast. Also, don't forget to follow Para-Reality on social media. You can find the podcast on Facebook by looking for sandman.parareality, or you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram under the username @ParaRealRadio. You can also find Para-Reality on YouTube under the username ParaReality1. That's Para-Reality with the number 1 out behind it. Parareality.com is the home of the podcast on the web, and it's also where you can find paranormal news from all around the world in the Para News section. And you can listen to past episodes in the archives section, all for the price of absolutely nothing. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can buy yourself some swag in the official Para-Reality shop while you're there. You can also support the podcast for free by leaving me a 3-star or better review on whatever podcast app you're listening on. Your reviews help the podcast to grow and reach even more people, and I would appreciate it very much. I'd love to hear from you guys, so send me those emails. Thank you. You know, I usually mute my microphone during the commercial break, as I call it, and I realized that I didn't do that this time, and I was enjoying a tasty beverage, so you may hear me enjoying, slurping on a tasty beverage in the background there, but I'm not going back to edit that out. I don't care. Free entertainment for you guys. Well, that about does it for tonight. Like I said, thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode of Para-Reality and my interview with Miss Barbara With. And once again, I want to sincerely thank her for being a guest on Para-Reality. Our next episode is going to drop on Friday, May the 3rd at 8 o'clock p.m. Central U.S. time. So make sure you tune in, and find out. And yes, I know that's the night before the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival. I will actually, I always pre-record all these, so I'll be on the road and head to the festival if I'm not already there. But this will be available on Friday, May the 3rd. As a matter of fact, I may just go ahead and drop it on May the 2nd. I don't know. That probably sounds like a better idea, but I'm just going to stay on schedule for right now. If I decide to drop it early, you guys, of course, will, as always, be the first to know. I hope that this podcast opens up your mind to new ways of thinking, expands your consciousness, and produces a change in the way you see the world. If you wish to change, you must lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe. I hope you have a wonderful evening, a great weekend, and I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Good night, everybody.
If you wish to change, you must first lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe.